My boyfriend, 22M, can't rest since I 22F have been assaulted. This is a throwaway account because my friends know my account and I don't necessarily want them to know everything. 3 weeks ago I, 22F, was assaulted when getting home late at night after work. I'll spare you the details, but he was much bigger and physically stronger than me, and even though I've been boxing for years, that's what allowed me to escape. I suffered some light injuries, broken nose, a few stitches and face bruises, and a broken finger. It could have been much worse. I don't want to think about what would have happened without my training. I called my boyfriend, 22 meters, right away, and he took me to the hospital. The guy who assaulted me was caught a few days later. My boyfriend has been, and always was, the sweetest since it happened. He's been extremely attentive to all my needs, very present and understanding of everything. However, he can't stop blaming himself. He can't let me go on my own without freaking out, while I also have to deal with my own fears. And he has great problems sleeping. He has terrible nightmares and has had very little sleep since then. I know I'll be alright with time, but I don't know how to help him. He's seeing a therapist as I am, but so far it hasn't helped. My friend went through something similar. Her husband was earning his PhD and had to go in person for the weekend to stay on campus for classes. While he was gone, she was assaulted while their 4 children were sleeping in the house. Thankfully, she was spared and so were the children. She contacted her husband and he immediately came home but was consumed with guilt. For him, he clung to Jesus through it, but I know some people aren't spiritual. They also went on a retreat together, just the 2 of them. They picked a place in the mountains and just spent time talking and healing together. One day of the retreat they had a counseling session together where they could hear both of each other's fears and concerns since the event. She specifically also did EMDR therapy, and what she learned there she would pass on to him. Just some ideas. By retreat, I should clarify it was a getaway, although I do know of retreats that couples can go on dealing with situations similar to this. Maybe the both of you take self-defense classes. It'd be good for him to physically see you handle yourself and maybe help put his mind at ease knowing you've got some strength and training behind you. Plus it'd be a fun bonding experience learning how to put some scumbag on his ass together. We actually met and bonded in boxing class. We've tried plenty of martial arts together, it's our main shared activity. But since it happened it doesn't look so fun for him anymore. I think he can't separate fun violence from the real thing. Patience. Therapy takes time to work. Trauma takes time to process. Give this some time. Last year, my father was assaulted and beaten nearly half to death, and he butt dialed me while it was happening. My dad is fine now, and I'll skip to the relevant bits. For several weeks afterwards, I could not sleep. I would have nightmares remembering the sounds on the phone. I would stay up at night running through what I did while on the phone, and what I could have done differently. I wasn't even the one assaulted, and I was quite shocked at how it affected me, but the good news is, it passed. The good news is, from my own experience, it will probably go away with time. I still will occasionally have a nightmare, but nothing like before, nothing worse than any kind of standard nightmare. There probably isn't much you can do other than be patient. Therapy could help too if it's right for him, and likely couldn't hurt. EMDR therapy is a great way to process trauma quickly and effectively. Perhaps one or both of you could do that. My girlfriend, 20F, put me, 19F, in an uncomfortable position with her family and then made me feel bad about it despite being aware of prior trauma, and now she's treating me like I'm overreacting. Am I? Trigger warnings for sexual assaults and parent death, no graphic descriptions, not sure how to do spoiler tags on mobile, sorry. Long story short, I was adopted by my dad, the best person on earth, from foster care when I was 9. When I was 14, we were in a car accident. Basically I was able to get out but I couldn't get him out, and we were on a rural road so it took a long time for emergency services to come out, and he died while we were waiting for the ambulance. Then I spent 2 years in a foster home where I was sexually abused by the man, until I left when I was 16. I met my girlfriend after I'd been on my own for a year, and we've been together for almost 2 years. She knows all of my history and is normally really understanding when I have a hard time. Side note, not in any therapy, although I try to do some mindfulness stuff whenever possible. It's a monetary issue. Things are hard right now as is. So in the almost 2 years we've been together, I've been hesitant about getting together with her parents for long stretches because I just don't do well with men in general. I've met them a couple times but we've never really hung out. Side note, she was pregnant when we first met. The baby's dad opted not to be involved in the baby's life, but we've raised him together. It was our son's birthday last week though, and they wanted us to come over for dinner tonight, so I decided to be an adult about it and go. It was super uncomfortable. Her dad is nice, but he reminded me a lot of my dad and it triggered a lot of anxiety and I couldn't really interact with him. In the car I basically just started crying as soon as I got in. We were about halfway home when she goes, "Look, I don't even know how to say this, but my parents were upset because you wouldn't talk to my dad and they think you're one of those lesbians who have a problem with men." I didn't even know how to respond to it at first, and then I finally just was like, "I mean, I feel like you kind of know that I do. My dad isn't going to hurt you." I never said he was. He reminded me of my dad and it made me sad. We argued about it a little more and she basically told me I was overreacting and I needed to get over it. I ended up having a huge panic attack / meltdown over it when we got home, and she's still mad / went to bed with no resolution, and I'm laying awake still thinking about it. The too long didn't read. I had a hard time / avoided communicating with my girlfriend's dad because of trauma. My GF knows about this and still treated me like I was overreacting. We fought about it and I don't know how to resolve it. Any / all advice is appreciated. I don't really know how to proceed from here / how to move forward in the future other than to just literally never interact with her dad ever again. Edit. Couple of things. My title is not very fair to my girlfriend. I wrote it when I was upset. Thank you everyone who offered resources. I really appreciate them. We live in a rural area in a middle of nowhere state, so finding resources I hadn't exhausted and that were affordable can be tough, and it was really helpful. I talked to my girlfriend, and apologized, and we're going to write a letter to her parents. I'm going to write, she's just going to help because she knows them better than I do. She knows I didn't mean to be rude, and she didn't mean to be frustrated. Hopefully that will help them understand me and help us build a relationship. Your GF obviously lost a bit of empathy for you because the issue was about her own parents. When things cool down tomorrow, you could talk to her about it. Tell her that you would want nothing more than to be able to have a great relationship with her parents, but that in that moment, some old memories and emotions just overwhelmed you. Might be good for your GF to inform her parents about your past, if you would be okay with that. That way, they'll understand that it isn't something personal, that you just experienced trauma and have a difficult time getting over it. Now they're just oblivious to all of it and can't show empathy when they feel ignored / disrespected. There are two things to consider here. One is short term, the argument with your girlfriend, and one is long term, your issues with being around men. Your girlfriend reacted very poorly and unsupportive, so you have every right to be upset. When things calm down, have a long and serious conversation with her about how you felt and why you would have wished that she was more understanding. But underneath all that, she does have kind of a point. It's neither her nor her dad's fault what happened to you, as horrible as your trauma is. And while you certainly don't owe them anything, I think it would be a good idea to try to address your issues with professional help so that you can heal and overcome it. Your behavior and attitudes will have an influence on the child you're raising, so I think it would be worthwhile to consider therapy. You can try to just avoid all interactions with men for the rest of your days, but considering the fact that you're raising a son, that approach will run into a wall rather sooner than later. I wish you all the best. This up right here. As the son gets older, you may be faced with more men-related issues or figures such as his teacher, his friends, etc. And it certainly won't be the last time you have to meet your partner's father. A bubble will only last so long before it pops. You need to have a long and serious conversation about this with your GF. She may know about your trauma and your past, but she may find it hard to empathize and understand. Let her know how the whole ordeal made you feel and how it affected you, and also let her know that her response wasn't apt and she wasn't being understanding at all. Has she always been like this, or was it just with his incident? I know it's difficult, especially with a child involved, but is there no way for you to find some money for some kind of mental health services? This is all way above Reddit's or your girlfriend's pay grade. And the longer you leave your wounds to fester, the worse they'll get. Trust me, I know. Is it just me, or you also get terrified by the thought of your partner cheating on you or leaving you? You are sitting with your partner thinking how much you love him/her, and suddenly an intrusive thought comes in your mind of your partner with someone else and ruins your vibe. How do you deal with such thing? It's called an anxious preoccupied attachment style. Lots of resources to get over it if you're interested. It's not easy though. I've been dating my BF for 2 years now, and at the beginning I really struggled with feelings of self-doubt and worries about him cheating/leaving me. I've worked through it and feel like we're at a really strong place now. What helped me was 1. Talking to him and letting him know that I'm insecure but working on it. 2. Discussing with him how we can best support each other and what makes us both feel secure. I told him I like frequent compliments, he asked me to unfollow a guy who had hit on me, etc. 3. Advice from my therapist: when you're feeling insecure in your relationship, try to mentally go over some facts. He's dating me BC, he likes me. He's told me he likes me. He wouldn't be dating me if he disliked me/our relationship. 4. Realizing that if something is meant for you, it will be yours. If it doesn't work out with a guy, it means there is something better out there for you. I also get like that, but I remind myself that my partner loves me and would never cheat on me. Then I think about all the times he told me that he loved me and wouldn't want to be with anyone else. I was with my ex-husband for 27 years. I trusted him, 100, never in a million years did I think he would have an affair. He woke me up at 6 a.m. the day before Mother's Day in 2018 to say he had been having an affair for 6 months with a woman he met on Words with Friends. Biggest shock of my life. Was just blown away. I am now divorced and in a new relationship. I love my boyfriend and trust him, but honestly there is a little PTSD there, that someday I will hear those same words again. If it could happen to me, it could happen to anyone. No, I have never thought like this. If my partner wants to be with someone other than me, he can have at it. I want to be with someone who wants to be with me. Don't get me wrong, I'm not some big prize. He could find smarter, prettier, etc. women than me. He has nevertheless chosen to be with me. I trust him, and if that trust one day ends up being misplaced, well, that will be on his conscience, not mine. I have had intrusive thoughts in other aspects of my life, so I know that's not a rational response one can just choose to not have. My advice is to focus on what you can control. Tell him you have trust issues, and if he can reassure you of his feelings, it would be helpful. If he ends up hurting you, then he isn't the right one for you. You've just reminded me of something I used to tell myself often when I was confidently single, but now seem to forget in a relationship. Yes, if they wanted someone else, why would I want them anyway? It is of course harder to think like this when you care deeply about someone, have a life built with them, and couldn't imagine wanting anyone else. But it still remains true. If they end up hurting you, then they aren't the person you wanted anymore, and that deep care you have for them belongs elsewhere.